subscriber mark this week.
Indeed we did.
So we just wanted to celebrate that a little bit. And wow, that was sooner than we thought. And so we want to thank all of you who have subscribed and all of those who have been so supportive of us and sent us messages, and we really appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, we've definitely made some friends along the way, and getting to meet some of those who have commented and emailed us and talked to people on the phone, and just, it's been a really adventurous year, and it's been great to meet new people, and it's just been great. And I'm sure I can speak for you. I'm surprised at how many people have responded to the channel, and I think that's in large part because of the demand that's out there for information about the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, and so many members are now having questions. So I think it's largely due to the demand out there. People want to know this stuff.
Yeah. This video, just a little warning, we're going to rant a little bit, which we've really never done. But I woke up this morning and felt really fired up. And I've had all day to think about it, and gotten more and more fired up about things. And we don't have one specific topic that we're going to talk about in this video. We're just going to cover a lot of different things because there's so much going on in the world. Not only in the world of the Jehovah's Witness community or the ex-Jehovah's Witness community, but just in the world in general. And just going to make some correlations, some observations, some feelings that we're having. And maybe this will resonate with some of you as well.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think there's so many things in the news, especially lately. Politics and uneasiness about, especially in the country where we live, the United States, uneasiness about the way forward. You know, so I think there's so many things and questions about the future that are on people's minds right now, and that includes the future of the Jehovah's Witness organization.
Right. So one of the things that we were talking about earlier and that I was sort of getting fired up about, like I said, this video is probably going to meander, so just stay with us. Why are people so angry? People are angry. That's something that we've noticed. And, you know, one of the things that the witnesses will accuse so-called apostates of being bitter and angry, and that they have, you know, a vendetta. This was something that my own parents said to me in our last conversation, that, oh, it sounds like you've just been reading a lot of apostate literature, and that, you know, that these people are just angry. And why are they angry? There's a reason why people, not only ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, but why people in America, why people in the rest of the world are angry and waking up to not only what's going on in their religions, ex-Scientologists waking up, ex-Mormons waking up, but why people are waking up to their politics as well. I mean, we don't have the answers, but we're just going to talk about it a little bit.
I think, like we talked about earlier, to a great extent, people are now starting to realize that the systems that they have put all their faith and belief in their entire life have failed them, have misrepresented themselves to them. And again, not just the Jehovah's Witnesses.
No.
This is you see a state of discontentment among most people because the world just isn't the way they were told it was going to be. And many of the things that they believed have been found to be untrue.
Right. And see, what's so interesting about this is the Jehovah's Witnesses will use this, and have used this as long as I was a witness, which was from birth. They have used this disillusionment with their political leaders, with their religious leaders, as proof that it was false, that don't put your trust in man, that only, you know, the only solution is God's kingdom. And yet we are finding out that a lot of people are walking away from the Jehovah's Witness organization because they've been disillusioned. They've been lied to. They've been misled. So the organization that told us don't trust in any of these other organizations because the only answer is God's kingdom, they are finding, well, we can't trust you either because you have just told us that Jesus never said that it was going to be perfect spiritual food, and so we've made a lot of failed predictions. We've keep changing our doctrines, and so the people feel uneasy and they can't even trust what's coming down from the governing body, that it might change a year from now, that a doctrine like such as the blood doctrine about not taking blood, that you would have been disfellowshipped for taking blood fractions, and yet just a year later they changed that you could take blood fractions. So maybe you were disfellowshipped for taking blood fractions, or maybe a loved one died because they wouldn't accept blood fractions because they would have been disfellowshipped, and they didn't want to die in a disfellowship state because maybe they wouldn't be resurrected. So these shifting sands that keep happening within the organization, that things can change at any time because there might be new light, is making people mistrustful. And so within the Ex-Jehovah's Witness organization, why are we angry? Let's just talk about that first of all, okay?
Well, I want to add an allegory story that perfectly describes this situation. We all know the tale of the boy who cried wolf. All of us do. And, well, just in case anybody missed it, a boy cries wolf, the huntsman or the shepherds of the field come to defend because there's a wolf, no wolf, the kid's playing a prank. So they go back to their business, angry at the kid. Kid cries wolf again, and they come running again. Kid's just playing a prank. Now they're starting to not believe what this kid says. Kid cries wolf a third time. There really is a wolf. Nobody comes to help him because they think he's just doing his same old antics. And so he ends up getting eaten by a wolf. The way things are now in the Jehovah's Witness organization, how many times are we going to come to a precipice where this is the end? This is what we see happening. In 1986, it was called the International Year of Peace. And the words peace and security were really thrown about in politics, in newspaper articles. It was kind of a common phrase at the time. And Jehovah's Witnesses jumped on that. Peace and security, cries of peace and security. It's these kind of predictions and failures that make the parishioners, the average Jehovah's Witness, the people who are attending the meetings, listening to the governing body and listening to the higher up authorities and saying, yes, we believe this, we're going to take action, only to have those beliefs changed or dissolved into something completely different over time. So as this happens again and again and again, people are much more interested now in investigating why they're saying this. Do they have the authority to say this? What is their authority? They've brought all of these questions upon themselves because of the many false predictions in the past, that people are no longer taking what they say as gospel, so to speak. It has to be investigated because this is your life you're talking about. This is a decision you make for your entire life. You need to know the truth.
So, for those of us who were raised in this organization, and some of you have made comments, and we know it's only a couple of you, so this isn't to the majority of our viewers, but oh, I bet you weren't really a Jehovah's Witness. Well, guess what? We were. We were born in it. Both of us, third generation Jehovah's Witnesses. Okay? Both of our fathers were elders. I auxiliary pioneered many times throughout my life. Mike, although he didn't ever serve as a servant, ran the microphones, ran the sound, conducted the book study from time to time, conducted field service.
Helped on special projects, building projects.
Gave talks at assemblies.
Read the Watchtower, gave prayers opening and closing the meetings. I had basically every privilege except I wasn't a ministerial servant.
Because he never wanted to be. He never wanted, and I didn't want him to serve as a ministerial servant. We never wanted that for ourselves because we didn't want that extra responsibility because, you know, it was too much responsibility for what? What did you gain from that?
Nothing.
Nothing except aggravation.
And at the time, we were young, too. 20, 22, 25. I mean, that's a lot of responsibility to put on a young person. And it's not like there was no pressure to do it. I got pressure to do it.
Oh, yeah. Before we were even married, I had elders say to me, you know, it's really going to be up to you, Robin, to make sure that Mike becomes a ministerial servant and an elder because, you know, it's a good wife that can support the husband. Without that, he'll never be able to attain that. And I was like, well, thank God it's up to me because I don't want him to serve.
Well, we just remember growing up, and I don't want to make this sound negative. We remember growing up, our parents, both of our fathers were elders. They spent a lot of time helping other people. A lot of time in elders meetings after the Thursday night meeting, after the Sunday meeting, after the book study. And we saw how much time went into that. We saw how, you know, because we were there. We were the ones sitting at the meeting until 10:30 at night while our dads were in the back room in an elders meeting. So we saw that. I mean, I just didn't want that. I didn't want that to be every part of my spare time in my life.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So, you know, for any of you naysayers, we were Jehovah's Witnesses, and we left after 34, 35 years of being Jehovah's Witnesses. And no, we weren't disfellowshipped. We left of our own accord, okay? So we're not bitter because we were disfellowshipped or, you know, whatever you might think. No, now I'm just going to say that for the most part, we're very peaceful. We're very happy, you know, whatever. But when you start thinking about what your life could have been, you know what your talents are, what you're good at, what you could have been pursuing in your life, and where you might have been at this point had you not been constantly told to, you know, not pursue the things of the world, not pursue higher education, not to think more of yourself than is necessary. So don't go about tooting your own horn. Don't think about what your talents are. Don't feel good about yourself. Don't be proud of your accomplishments. No, all you need to do is make sure your butt is in that seat every night of the meeting and out in service on a Saturday morning trying to bring more people in. So nothing else that you ever did in your life meant anything. So you didn't think about, you know, well, you did think about what you know, could possibly be doing with your life, but you didn't pursue those. And thank God I started to pursue those things when I was 34 years old. Better late than never, and that's not even that late in life to be, you know, pursuing a higher education and whatnot. But you know, you feel like you could have been so much further in your life that you would, you know, your purpose would be so much clearer had you had the encouragement to go after your dreams when you were young.
Let me just say to people, too, who are watching this, we're not talking about making more money.
No.
Just because that's initially what the Jehovah's Witness organization will say. You're striving after material things. And that is not the case.
No.
You can find satisfaction in a job that brings you a feeling of actual real accomplishment. Maybe really helping people. Maybe, I don't know, it's different for everybody. But it's not money.
No.
It's a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
I guess or a passion that you have for something and being held back from reaching your goals or achieving that passion or going after your dreams. So it's not about money.
No, and you know, and any talents that you have, you were discouraged from pursuing because, oh, you can develop those talents in the new system. How many times did you hear that? Oh, I'll do that in the new system. I'll learn how to, I don't know, silly things, ice skate. I'll learn how to play the piano. I'll learn how to, you know, all these different things that people, you know, dream about doing, about being good at, but they're discouraged from pursuing because all that matters is pursuing the kingdom interests. And by pursuing kingdom interest, that means you're pursuing the interest of a publishing company that wants you out there pushing its product for your volunteer hours for free so that they get billions of hours every year. Is it billions? I don't know how many hours it is every year. But for free, that people are out there volunteering their time to bring in less than 3,000 publishers last year. Less than 3,000.
Yeah, I think we worked it out after we did our last video. We talked about it.
Yeah.
And it was like 10.6 years of hours. 10.6 years of straight hours for each one of those 2,900 and change people that became baptized publishers in the United States. Mm-hmm. That is not productive. Mm-hmm. And it's a waste of people's times. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sorry to put it so bluntly, but the preaching work is a waste of your time now. Mm-hmm. When we grew up and we were going door-to-door service since we were little kids, it was all about interacting with people, talking to people, starting conversations. And the way that the ministry has changed now, from what I can see to a great extent, is in the metropolitan witnessing. You're not really engaging anyone in conversations. You're standing by a cart of literature, hoping someone will take something and maybe talk to you. In areas where they do business witnessing or in the airports, it's the same type of a thing. You're in a confined box that you can stand with literature, but you cannot interact with people. So the ministry is different than it was when we were kids. And it is no longer effective. If people want to know something about Jehovah's Witnesses, they Google it. They'll Google it right there on their phone, standing in front of you. It's pointless. Mm-hmm. It's not working anymore.
Right. So, one thing that I noticed about even myself is, so this is something we were talking about earlier. We have not had cable television in a year and a half. Mm-hmm. And not having cable television has really opened up my mind in different ways, which kind of seems like counterintuitive that you don't have TV anymore, really. So, but the reason that I figured out, sort of, is that, I'm sort of behind or don't really know what's going on a lot in pop culture. But, I keep up a little bit with pop culture. I'm not completely out of it. But what I find is that people have been so numbed out by, watching Access Hollywood, Entertainment Tonight. They're living their life through other people.
TMZ.
Like, they're not even living their own life.
Yeah.
And they're, so caught up in, their television shows that they're numbing themselves out. I'll admit it, for years would come home and, at night you'd spend hours in front of the TV and just numbing yourself out. And people do this in different ways, whether it's through alcohol, through food, through, like entertainment, like we were saying, that people have been so numbed out. And I think that what has happened this past year, especially in the United States, we had such a divisive political climate. Mm-hmm. And now people who weren't involved in politics, maybe, they feel a need to get involved because they don't like the direction that the country is going. And some people love the direction that the country is going. I will say this. Now, quite honestly, we were not Trump supporters, but I don't want to see him fail.
Nope.
I don't want to see him fail. Even though I don't like the guy, I don't want to see him fail. And I want this country to succeed, and that it would benefit us, and then maybe it would help the rest of the world too. Who knows? I don't know. But the point is that unlike what they did to Obama of 8 years of working against him, I don't want to see that happen. Some of his initiatives I don't agree with, but if it comes to, helping our economy, then I'm for it. I'm not for a lot of the other things that he's proposing, but one of the things, and we have to mention this because it will be evident.
I'm just smiling because we're getting political all of a sudden.
We're getting political,
boy.
But it will be evident that we did watch Mike and Kim's video, their most recent video about Trump possibly wanting to pull out of the UN. Mm-hmm. what will this mean for Jehovah's Witnesses?
I just want to take a step back real quick.
Okay.
So what you were saying about kind of disconnecting, no cable. What the Jehovah's Witnesses will have you do, if you are Jehovah's Witness, this is your lifestyle. You'll rush home from work, quickly study your lesson if you didn't already get to it for the meeting or the book study, and then you go to the meeting, go to the book study. Sitting there for hour and 45 minutes, depending on whatever meeting it is or how they've got things structured now. So either way, you've got all of these things to do during the week. You are bombarded, preparing for ministry, preparing for the Watchtower study, making sure you have comments ready for the Watchtower study, making sure you're there for the public talk, making sure to invite people, making sure about field service, all of these things. You are zoned out. You are bombarded with this world of Jehovah's Witness thunderstorms, basically, of information coming at you, things you have to do, things you have to read, things you have to keep up with, not to mention JW.org and the broadcasting and the videos and the Caleb and Sophia and the Bible talks. It really leaves you no time for not even a thought of your own. And like Robin was saying, you check out from, the local, so you stop watching TV, then you kind of start doing other things. You become more awake to what's going on around you. Maybe you start observing nature more or whatever. But as a Jehovah's Witness, when you're so bombarded, it's probably a good thing to check out for a little bit.
Yeah, so what Mike is trying to say
Thank you.
is that Jehovah's Witnesses, like most of the rest of the world, are numbed out. And they're numbed out from being bombarded with all of the literature that they have to keep up with, all the studying that they're supposed to be doing, all of the attending of meetings, all of the preparing for meetings, all of the going out in service, trying to study with people, going back on return visit. They're numbed out. And how many of them, I mean, when you and I were witnesses, I mean, we could see this. How many, even, this was 10 years ago, 11 years ago, how many people did we know that we knew about that were on antidepressants?
Many.
A lot who were on antidepressants. I was on antidepressants. Hey, guess what? Yeah, me. I was on
antidepressants too at one point.
Yeah, yeah. And so we saw people that were numbed out. We saw so many people with like chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia. Lupus is another big one, because lupus, although there are markers for lupus that can be tested, sometimes people are diagnosed with lupus just like fibromyalgia because they've basically ruled everything else out, so then they give them the diagnosis. So not to say that these aren't real things, but how many, it was disproportionate amount of people that were physically and mentally ill.
And if you see what the experts have to say about these type of things, there is definitely a mind-body connection with these illnesses. And so you wonder, what is the state of mind of these people? Are they depressed? Yeah, probably. Probably very depressed. Maybe they don't even recognize that's what it is. And the idea that going out in service more and studying more will fix it is not real. That's not real.
And by the way, that is their answer to it. That is their answer. Lady C and JT have talked about this on their channel. JT attended, I forget what it was, but it was at the headquarters. Maybe it was an elder school. And what is the answer when they're like discouraging? Some of the elders, I guess, were getting further education and learning more about how to handle depression and things, because they had so many depressed people within their congregations, and so they were furthering their education by taking some classes and reading some books. And no, discouraged from that. They said, brothers, you don't need all of that. The answer to it is more field service. I mean, are you out of your minds?
Doctor, my back hurts. There's a bunch of nails in my bed. You know what you need? More nails. More nails fixes it.
More nails.
And I've had that discussion with an elder from our previous congregation out in field service, because toward the end, my field service time was very low. I mean, I think, man, I was getting an hour a month just to be considered a regular publisher still. And he's like, you know, what's going on? You know, what's going on with your field service and everything? And I said, I just don't feel like it's right. I'm having trouble finding any joy or any satisfaction in doing this. Because I don't, first of all, my thought was, as the time went on, close to the end of being a Jehovah's Witness, my thought was how Jesus talked about treating people, and that you would want to treat people how you would want to be treated. And I thought to myself, I don't want people coming to my house on a Saturday or Sunday morning constantly trying to convert me to their religion. I wouldn't want that. And that bothered me. That was like a real thing for me. Like, I would hate this if this happened to me all the time, and here I'm the one doing it. And his answer again was to study more, read the Bible more, and go out in field service more.
Oh, yeah.
To find the joy in doing it. And I got to tell you guys that if it's a matter of conscience that is bothering you in some way, doing it more makes it worse. You know, so I mean, if it's something that bothers you, do it more. Yeah, that's going to help, right? So that's the mentality of the organization. And I'm not saying anything bad about the particular brothers that we've dealt with, because again, this guy that I talked to, I always liked him, always thought he was cool, still think he does, I think he's cool to this day, you know. But they are misled terribly, because they think that what they're telling you is helping, and it's hurting. And they don't even recognize it. So, it's a mess. It's a real mess.
And they have a real mess on their hands. The governing body has a huge mess on their hands, because more and more people are waking up. People are leaving by the busloads every day. And they're really in trouble. So, like I had just mentioned before this rant, was that we were watching Mike and Kim's most recent video, and you know, I have seen some of the headlines too about Trump thinking about pulling out of the UN, and that leaves you to wonder, because the United Nations, for those of you who may not know, I'm sure most of you do, but the United Nations has been called the wild beast of Revelation. For decades they've called it the wild beast of Revelation. And so what the Jehovah's Witnesses believe is that the wild beast, the United Nations, is going to turn on Babylon the Great. Babylon the Great is the world empire of false religion. So every religion that's not Jehovah's Witnesses is considered false religion. And that the wild beast, or the United Nations, is going to turn on all religion, and then they're going to turn on Jehovah's Witnesses. And so, what if the wild beast doesn't exist anymore?
What if the wild beast dies?
What if the wild beast... Now, that will be the last nail in the coffin, I believe, for the Jehovah's Witnesses. Because this will be this is one of the last prophecies that they haven't changed at all. In how many years? 70 years maybe? 60, 70 years?
It's been consistent.
It's been consistent, and that will have proved to come true. Another failed prophecy. And what, Jehovah's Witnesses that you're watching, what are you going to do when there is no more United Nations?
When there's going to be no attack at the Great Tribulation, when no one is going to come shutting you down. When there's going to be no one to come shut you down. Not like the prophecy.
Not like you've said. So, how are you going to feel? Are you going to stand by your man?
Yeah, is that going to be what finally wakes you up? Really, I mean, if it hasn't been the overlap, if it wasn't 1975, if it wasn't the blood doctrine changing, if it wasn't the governing body saying they're not inspired, if it wasn't for the change in the choosing the elders and the elder arrangement, if it wasn't for the overlapping generations, if you didn't wake up during any one of these things and have questions, is this going to be the thing that finally does it for you when there's nothing else left that was the same as the original Jehovah's Witness faith?
Mm-hmm. If it wasn't 607, learning that 607 is a false date, and thus 1914 is irrelevant. If that's not it, what is it going to take for you to wake up? If it's not that your heart is breaking because you're shunning your family members who have left. Now, you know, this just gets me riled up because I just think about, let's just start with my mother, who was raised a Baptist. If you would have stayed a Baptist for the rest of your life, okay, if you were still a Baptist, would it ever have come into your heart to shun your daughter because she changed her religion and she wasn't a Baptist anymore and she didn't believe what you believed anymore? Did it ever come into the hearts of your parents who remained Baptist until the day they died? Would that ever have come into your heart to have no natural affection unless an organization told you to?
And the other thing too, our parents would still be talking to us, be it on a limited basis, if we did not speak out publicly about what we have learned. That is hypocritical because our beliefs don't change. What we think doesn't change. Our view of the governing body or their literature or their interpretation of the Bible does not change. And yet, it's only our making a public statement about it that causes you to shun us. Is it fear of man that causes you to take these actions? Fear of what your brothers and sisters will think of you? Mm-hmm. Fear of being labeled yourself? I say it's fear of man. We're not afraid of men. We're not afraid of anything. No fear of man when it comes to following what the governing body tells you to do. Don't question our orders, just do it. This is the way it's done. We're not afraid. We seek the truth when it comes to all of this stuff, all of these beliefs. We seek truth. And we are not afraid to say that what they're saying is a lie.
We're not afraid to look at other information. Information, by the way, that they will refer to in their literature, but then we go to it, and guess what? They've misquoted it. Mm-hmm. We're not afraid to look at that literature, but you are.
Go to the Imperial Bible Dictionary, turn to page 200 in your reasoning book, and look at the cross, and find the actual quotations to find out how the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society has manipulated the author's writings to make it say what they want it to say. It's a falsehood and a lie. And when we find out and have a question about it, now we're the bad ones. Now we're in trouble.
Right. So, sorry to get so riled up, but, you know...
I'm not riled up yet.
I'm riled up. I'm riled up because, you know, there's so much going on in the world. There's so much information coming to you. You're constantly having to filter out stuff. And, you know, why we talk about this one religion. Yeah, there's hypocrisy and problems in all religions, but we weren't raised in those religions. We didn't give up so much of our lives to those religions. This is the one that screwed us over.
And there's another thing that I think needs to be said for this as well, because I think I've stated before, I listen to a lot of religious talk radio. Don't ask me why. I don't believe any of it, but I listen to it because I'm very curious about what other people's faiths are. I find it very interesting. I'm not offended by what anyone believes, except I notice almost every other church, denomination, and religious type of Christian religion, on the radio they talk about their public ministries, the food banks, the helping the homeless. These are real organizations helping real people right now. And that's something that I gotta stand behind. I gotta get behind that, because at a time in the world where, as President Trump would say, it's the most divisive, people are the most angry. Yeah, it's time for us to start helping each other out. Across denominations. It doesn't matter what somebody believes. Help your fellow man. And these organizations, despite being a Catholic church or whatever type of brand of organization it is, are helping those who are across any denomination or even with no faith. You know, they're helping people of all faiths, because it's being Christ-like, it's being Christian to help others, and it's just not in the Jehovah's Witness organization. They don't offer any real, tangible help. They offer help for the future, help for paradise, but that doesn't help a person eat today. That doesn't help a person have a warm coat or a blanket. You know, it's just...
You know, it just... I get riled up when I think about it, because, you know, I had this conversation with my sister years ago, that they are not a charitable organization. They don't help people. When people that are in need, what, you know, within certain, sorry, I have a hair, within other religious denominations, they have within them organizations set up for, like he said, feeding the homeless, you know, just helping orphans and widows. They have these set up within them. But do the witnesses have those programs? They're worth $2 billion. They're worth. Of course, that's depleting quickly. But, you know, they, with all the lawsuits that are coming against them, but, you know, they're worth $2 billion, and they can't set up something that... Listen, I know that there are so many really good-hearted Jehovah's Witnesses who, without anybody else knowing, will bring groceries to someone who is in financial problems, that will, you know, take boys that don't have a father, will take them and play basketball with them, take them fishing. I know that there are good people within the congregations, but is this institutionalized, where it's set up to be that way, where they have their own structures to take care of people?
No. It just proves that people within the organization can be awesome people.
Yeah.
But the organization does not support that type of public behavior. They do not make a public effort to help anyone who is not a Jehovah's Witness or who is not becoming a Jehovah's Witness.
Now you'll point to, what about in disaster zones? Jehovah's Witnesses are often some of the first responders to go in and help. That is true, but who do they help first? Their people, sure, okay, which makes sense, I guess, you know.
Well, I've been there firsthand.
Okay, but then what do? We're finding out that in these areas where there's been a hurricane or an earthquake, yes, they'll go in and fix the roof or whatever it is, but then they'll come back and say, okay, now when you get your insurance money, make sure that you turn that money over to the Watchtower, because we've helped you. And if we were going to bill you, this is how much money it would have costed for you to get this fixed. So it's not charity. You're reimbursing them for it.
Yeah. And I remember after Hurricane Andrew happened down in South Florida, you know, we live down here, so we were down there helping for a little while with some relief effort and clearing trees and just all this mess. And we were helping brothers and sisters, and it's not like we didn't help anyone else, but it depended upon who we were working with. There were some people, and I can say this about my dad, very compassionate guy, who was like, hey, look, the neighbor's got a tree in their house, let's go get this thing cleared off so they can at least put a tarp on their roof. So, depending upon who you were working with, you may have helped worldly people, but there was certainly no mandate for it, and the assignments were to go to witness X's house who needed help, and then you go to witness Y's house who needs help. So you're skipping over every other person who needs help in between, and only going to the witnesses. Now, I was very happy that we actually did help some of the other people's neighbors that were there, but I'm not saying that's the norm. I'm not saying that that's what everyone does, because it's certainly not talked to about that way, about the meetings in the morning when they separate the work crews to go out. That's not talked about.
Yeah, so, that just, their charitable status is in question in the United Kingdom. And it's only a matter of time before it comes into question, I think, in the United States.
Yeah.
And as we know, there are commercials airing now for victims of child abuse. I believe that these law firms are probably gearing up for a class action lawsuit.
Yeah.
They're building a case. And if you don't already know this, the Watchtower is being fined $4,000 a day because they refused to turn over information that was subpoenaed information, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court of California.
And last time I checked, that total was approaching $1 million.
So your wonderful contributions that you're sending in every month, you're financing their refusal to turn over subpoenaed materials, because they know that if it gets out, and when it gets out, and it will, it's going to get out, what kind of problem of hiding pedophiles within this organization that they really have. And I think when you see it, when it comes out, you're going to be freaking shocked.